Welcome to Lesson 23, Part 2. So we're going to continue doing the work that we did in our previous lesson, dealing with decimals and fractions and comparing those decimals and fractions. But first, go ahead and knock out this first page, dealing with comparing fractions. And just a reminder, you can't compare fractions until they have common denominators, so make sure you're doing that. Alright, go ahead and check your appetizer with mine, and we can get going on main dish part 1. Again, just continuing our work from yesterday. So first off, go ahead and in the top of the place value chart, can you label the two missing place values? Hopefully you are labeling this one the tenths. Remember that THS is key to tell us it's a decimal place value. And then our next place value is the hundredths, again with that THS. We're going to practice reading out this number, and I know that making a video lesson, the problem with it is that I can't hear your voice say this, but it is important that you're able to read out these numbers and know how to say them. So make sure that you're whisper saying them or mouthing them or just saying it out loud, because we do need to practice. So when you're saying a decimal number, you say whatever the whole number is first. However long it may be, you say it just like a normal number. So I would say 32. This decimal, we kind of talked about this yesterday. We don't say point, we don't say decimal, we don't say dot, we say the word and. When we say and, it separates that we are not talking about whole numbers anymore. We're now talking about a decimal or a fraction if it was a mixed number. After we say and, we read this decimal number out completely normal again. So in this case, we would say 56. We wouldn't say 5/10ths and 6/100ths. We read this out however long this may be. The only difference is this time we do need to add a label to our decimal. So whatever place value the number ends in, that is the label. So in this case, the 6 ends in the hundredths place. So we would say 56 hundredths. So go ahead and on this line in word form, and then say it again, 32 and 56 hundredths. Go ahead and practice saying this next number to yourself. I'm not going to make you write it out in word form, but you should have said 6,801 and 7/10ths. The 7 ended in the tenths place, so that would be our label for this decimal number. Now moving into more work that was really similar to what we did yesterday. Let's go ahead and do 2 on each side, the top 2 for the decimals, and then the top 2 for the fractions, and then you can do the last 4 on your own. So looking at this, remember, just read it out loud, read it to yourself in your head, and you're saying it in fraction form as well. So 0 and 8/10ths, so 8/10ths. 0 and 5/100ths, 5/100ths. Looking over at our fraction form, we're going to convert it to a decimal. Read it out loud, 98 hundredths. They don't have any holes. My 98 needs to end in the hundredths place. And then I have 2/10ths, so no holes again, and this time the 2 needs to end in the tenths place. Go ahead and try the last 4 on your own. Alright, go ahead and check your last 4 with mine. And let's move on to main dish part 2. Again, this is going to be Super similar to what we did yesterday. The top part, we're going to compare just decimals. The second part, we'll compare decimals and fractions. And then the last section is going to test your knowledge of place value names. Let's do the top two together. So when we're comparing decimals, we start in the greatest place value possible. For this case, it seems to be the ones place. They are both the same, so this isn't going to be helpful to us, but the tenths place will be. 7/10 is greater than 59 hundredths. Moving over, in our whole number, the ones place, the 2 is the same. The tenths place is the same. The hundredths place is a 5 versus we're going to plug in a 0 as a placeholder here. As 5, not the same, so 5 is the greater one. Go ahead and do the bottom two on your own. Hopefully you didn't get tricked on that one, where it was 9 and 62 hundredths and 13 and 5 tenths. The 13 had a 1 in the tens place while the 9 had nothing. So we easily knew right from the get-go that this number was going to be the greater one. Next, we're going to compare fractions and decimals. Remember, transform that fraction into a decimal so that we can easily compare just like what we just did in the top 4 problems. So I've got 3/10 and 3/100. So I'm going to transform this to a decimal, 0 wholes, 3/100. Easy to see that this is the greater decimal. Next, I'm going to do 6/10, transform that into a decimal. When I compare, I can tell that 0 and 9/10 is greater. And lastly, transform this into a decimal, 7/100. So my 7 needs to end in the hundredths place. And I can easily compare those. Go ahead and knock out this last one on your own. All right, this time the place value that was left untouched was that 2, which is in the tenths place. Again, that THS is important. It tells us it is a decimal place value and not the normal tens whole number place value. You are good to move on to your dessert for today.